I'm not going to look at the numbers especially the World Bank and IMF as well as ADB and other IFIS investment in water sector. But I'll just take you on the journey of water from commons to commodity. So basically, if you look at the IFIS investment, it's basically World Bank which started investing in water sector. If you look at the whole green revolution was promoted by World Bank with investment in irrigation sector. But in last, I would say, 20 years, they started heavily investing in the drinking water sector. And World Bank, along with its other agencies like International Financial Corporations, the Water and Sanitation Program, the Public-Private Infrastructure Advisory Facility, these are the agencies, World Bank agencies who are investing in or they are bringing in the water reforms. So, and the whole water reforms was based on the mechanism of profit making. And that's why the water is now today called as blue gold. So, and World Bank and IMF was also instrumental in influencing the water policy of 2002, Indian water policy of 2002, because they wanted to emphasize the role of private sector in the water business. And after water policy 2002, if you look at the water became it was earlier a common resources. Now it became a tradable, profitable economic product which are being owned, overexploited, marketed, and sold to those who can pay. This change came from the water policy of 2002. Because water policy 2002 is called for private sector participation in planning, development, management of water resources projects for diverse users and in building, owning, operating, leasing and transferring of water resource facility. So in the water reforms, they were mainly focusing on the full cost recovery. And the whole focus was on the full cost recovery. Now, what are the justifications they had given for the water reforms? One was that there is a failure of public system. State is not able to deliver. They are not in a position to, invest in infrastructure. Then the other was to achieving the 24/7 water supply through better management. Then they also emphasized that there need to reduce the leakages, and they wanted to bring in the new technologies. Now, another big issue in the privatization of water was the reduction of non-revenue water, or they call it unaccounted for water. So that was the one thing. For example, if you look at the Nagpur water privatization, the private companies and the government say that they took 54% of leakages, and that is the key thing where they have tried to reduce this unaccountable water. So, and by reducing it, they wanted to show the success of water privatization. Now, another important thing was the improvement in customer facility, as well as cheaper tariff, increased efficiency, and reduced corruption. Now, the other trends, if you look at in the water sector reforms, was besides the IFIs. We are also looking at some of the Indian, agencies or programs that have started water reforms. So, for example, the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, urban infrastructure development schemes in the small and medium townships, then smart city, which I think Amit and Gaurav has already spoken about, and Amrut plan for urban development. These are the other programs which has influencing the water reforms in India. Now, other than the national programs, there are also state programs. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, if you look at the Chief Minister's urban water supply schemes, then Madhya Pradesh Jal Nigam, they are the ones who are also promoting the water reforms. But besides the drinking water, if you look at even irrigation, industrial water supply, bottled water sectors, in all these sectors the reforms are coming in, and the private sector investing heavily in these sectors. So who are the big companies? So of course there are big companies like Veolia, Suez, Ontario de Gremont, which is part of the Suez, then Suez, then Thames Water. They are the big companies who are into it. And if you look at in the bottled water sector, you have Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and there are several Indian companies. Then you also have a lot of Indian companies who are investing in water. So SPML is, they have taken projects in several cities in India. Vishwa Utilities, which is the Vishwaraj Private Limited, Justco is there. It had taken project in Mysore, which got failed. ILFS, Jindal Water Infrastructure. Then there are construction companies. There are consulting firms who are also, influencing the water reforms in India. But who are the main projects? If you look at, we have, for example, Veolia, who has invested in Delhi, Hubli, Dharwad, Shivpuri, Nagpur, and just to tell you that in Veolia we have around 13.9% investment, because Veolia has created a subsidiary called Veolia Water India Africa, which has a 13.9% investment from IFC. Then you have Suez in Delhi, in Pimpri Chadwar near Pune. Then you have Thames Water, which had invested in Bangalore, but there are several other projects, for example, Mysore, Khandwa, Tirupur, Patna, Guwahati, Mangalore, Calcutta, Ludhiana, Dewas. So there's several PPP projects have come in India in last, I would say, 10 years. And what are these experiences of PPP? If you look at, in fact, Outlook has done a very good study a few years back, in 2013, where they looked at about 30 PPP projects, and they have come out with a report which says that, in most of these PPPs, the water rates have increased by an average of 100%. Then they have also said that, in fact, Planning Commission did a study on the 13 PPPs where they found that none of these PPPs are satisfactory. And in one of the, and in fact, Planning Commission also concluded saying that 4 of them were not even viable, so out of 5 which they have studied. So CSE did a study which says that, in most of the PPP projects, the private partners have contributed only 29%. So which also shows that nowadays it's mainly the Indian companies, our Indian government who are investing more in water, not the IFIs or the private companies. In fact, World Bank did a study which looked at the 5 PPPs in Nagpur, Aurangabad, Mysore, Latur and Khandwa, where they have shown the private investment. So in Nagpur it's 30%, in Aurangabad it's 50%, but in Mysore and Latur there is no private investment, while in Khandwa it's only 10%. So this is the the role of IFIs in our investment from IFIs in the PPPs are really reducing. But if you look at the international experiences, in fact, Corporate Accountability International have done a study where they have looked at several PPP projects around the world, and they have said that there were around 85 major PPP projects in 2007, but it reduced to 22 in 2013, and out of the around around 63 projects which represents around 28% of the IFI total water investment in last 20 years, and most of these have failed. Now, what are the other implications of PPP in water sector? What we have looked at is that the private operators are not able to fulfill the contractual promises. So there is increase in tariff. The services as not as good as they have promised in the contract, in the concessions. The new technologies they have not brought in. The coverage is very small. There is not wider coverage. Then there's a lot of disconnections, then household cutoffs from supplies. Then there's another trend which is also starting, is that if you look at wherever the private companies have invested, especially in internationally, they are trying to use the ISDS to protect their investment. The ISDS is basically investor-state dispute settlement provision under the investment treaty, where they are trying to protect the investment. So in the case of, for example, in Argentina, where the Argentinian government were not going to increase the tariff, then they brought in the BIT, the bilateral investment treaty between Argentina and France to basically sue the Argentinian government. The similar thing has happened in the case of Bolivia. So this is also an important trend to look at, because if in India is going to sign several BITs. In fact, they are already signing FTAs. There are several FTAs in the pipeline where ISDS is an important provision. So this is an important trend which we need to monitor in the coming days. Now, what are the strategies which are there to resist these PPPs? So, in fact, one of the strategies which we have used in our campaign in Mumbai and Delhi was to basically attack them, saying that because if you talk to the World Bank people or the people who are promoting PPPs, they said no, PPPs is not privatization. But we have established that PPPs are privatization, and in fact, there are reports from the World Bank which also establish that PPPs are privatization projects. Now, there are other, trends which we are not seeing in the water sector is as we have, said in the meeting at Goregaon, is the remunicipalization. A lot of remunicipalization projects, those projects which have been privatized, now they are going back into the hands of municipal corporations. And internationally, if you look at, there is another program which is there, it's called public-public partnership. And public-public partnership is another initiative at the international level. So if you look at the water remunicipalization projects, in fact, there are more than 100 projects which has been, which the TNI is registering. In fact, they have also brought out a publication on the failed PPPs or remunicipalization projects. Now, the PPP, if you look at the Indian experience, in fact, in Delhi, there is one important change which has happened, because Delhi was also, there are 3 PPP projects in Delhi, but despite that, when the AAP government came into power, they said no, they are not going to privatize further. But one important change they have brought in the Delhi case was that they have introduced the lifeline water. They have given around 20,000 liters of water as lifeline water. Just lifeline. So the 20,000 liters as lifeline water. And when they introduced this in 2015, there are around 7 lakh connections, 7.5 lakh connections. We were the beneficiaries of this lifeline water. But today, the number of people who benefit, including me, because my water tariff for last 5-6 months is 0. I don't get any water bills. So, and the numbers have increased to 12.5 lakh. So this is a very good, and this is only because of the public investment in water. In fact, the Delhi government subsidizes around 200 crores rupees they provide for this lifeline water project they have started in Delhi. So this is something we also need to look at in our campaigns, that how we can influence more public investment. And this is only possible when we need to, when we work closely with the water operators. Because at the international level, there are several, projects where the water operators are collaborating, or they are in touch with the, for example, the Malaysian water operators are, they are going and in Africa, and in fact, trying to bring in reforms, public reforms in the African utilities. So this is other aspect which we need to look at. Thank you.
Your presentation, I think, you spelled out something which is the most important aspect. And I thought maybe Benny will be covering that in the next session, the ISDS. Now, ISDS is to private investments what ICSID is to the World Bank Group. Now, precisely these are such dark bodies that we cannot talk about immunity in the sense that we talk about immunity being given to private investments from the World Bank or private investments from the corporations. Because these bodies have the capability of going and screwing up the entire sovereign country in themselves. Argentina, Bolivia, El Salvador are the cases in point here.
I mean, the issue, the question which Manchu has raised regarding ISDS, it's really very scary thing. And there are several cases where the corporate power has a supremacy over the state power, because the corporations have taken governments to court and they have sued the government because the government have any kind of a regulation, or they have cancelled the license. For example, it also doesn't mean that there are so many Indian companies who are investing in these big projects. It doesn't mean that Indian companies cannot take the government to court if the government take any action which impacts their profit. For example, in Andhra Pradesh, government has cancelled a license of a Indian company which was registered in UAE. So that Indian company and a license for aluminium mining in Andhra Pradesh, and the Andhra Pradesh government cancelled that license. So this Indian company, they used India-EU Bilateral Investment Treaty ISDS provision to sue the Andhra Pradesh government for $49 million. So I try to emphasize that don't think that Indian companies will not take the Indian government to court if we take any action against the company, if their profit is impacted. So this is something which we all need to look at, and I would request all of you to also look at the ISDS provisions in BITs or in FTA which is being signed between different countries, which India is negotiating.